Welcome to the Bend Don't Break podcast. We are powered by The Source, Ben's locally owned media company and weekly newspaper. This podcast is our eddy in the rushing waters of local journalism. We are glad that you're taking some of your time to listen to us chat with the people who shape our local community. Support us through our member program at bensource.com.
Thank you to our presenting sponsor, RE/MAX Key Properties, a family-owned full-service real estate brokerage specializing in residential, luxury, commercial, new construction, and ranch and land properties. Their new state-of-the-art facility at 42 Greenwood Avenue is a modern, collaborative space and the new home of the Bend Don't Break podcast recording studio.
I'm Aaron Schweitzer, producer of this fine podcast and publisher of the fine publication, The Source. I have with me today Cyrus Mooney, currently serves as the Business Development Manager for the City of Bend, working on economic development-related projects and policies. Before starting at the city, he worked at Oregon State University in Student Affairs, and more recently at the Bend Chamber of Commerce. With a background in leadership, development, and community engagement, Cyrus aims to be a servant leader who acts as a resource for the betterment of our economy and civic well-being for years to come. Thanks, Cyrus, for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And full disclosure, Cyrus and I serve on the City Club Board and Programming Committee, where I kind of twisted his arm to come on here. So
cross paths in a lot of different ways
That's
these days.
Thank you for being here. So, Cyrus, where were you born and raised? Are you Oregonian?
Yeah, born and raised Oregonian, just south of Portland in Sherwood, which has changed and grown a lot as well. But yeah, so born and raised over there and went to Oregon State, lived in Corvallis for about 10 years and had roots in Central Oregon with family, so made it back home.
You had family over here?
My in-laws, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so grandparents are still out in Prineville,
Yeah.
and they have not left.
And you have grandparents in Prineville.
Yep.
So
yep.
your parents came from Prineville to Sherwood?
My in-laws did,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
And my father-in-law worked at Tektronix, so tech evolution in Central Oregon was a little bit behind, so he took a job at Intel, so opportunity took him there, and Sherwood was home.
I think Sherwood is in our district now, isn't it, for federal Senate, right?
I believe
doesn't
that's right.
Doesn't it snake on up into an area of common interest, as they say?
Now to me, everything just blurs together over there. Everything's so close together,
Right.
unlike over here.
I mean, Sherwood has changed. I mean, it's pretty hip. It's a pretty hip area.
Yeah, a lot of young families coming in. I mean, there's a lot of affluency. I think that is a blessing and a curse in a lot of different ways. But yeah, it's a beautiful place, a great place to grow up.
A lot of good restaurants there. I've eaten at a couple of them. So. Yeah, I had a friend we used to go to Portland, and he lived close to Sherwood. He was in a less cool neighborhood than Sherwood, so he would drag us over there. But and then you worked in student affairs, so that's kind of similar to your job here.
Something like that. I'd say the workforce development component, because I had a team of 70 student employees that I was the direct supervisor
70.
for. Yep. Yeah.
How old were you?
22.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, the nice thing about it is that I was one of the students when I was in school that was in the same position. And so I understood what it was like being on the front lines all the way up to working in administration. But it was a really rewarding experience. And I think I haven't necessarily in my career trajectory said, when I'm 28, I want to be at this point. I've kind of just followed what has brought me fulfillment and where I feel like I can make a difference or some impact. And the service leadership is, I think, the common thread of like where I feel like I can provide that.
I'd say you got some natural management ability if you're 22 and going to school and just naturally wanted to manage 70 people.
I don't know if it was like a naturally want, maybe a seizing of the opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's very cool. And then, so how do you come to get your job at the chamber?
Yeah. So my wife and I lived in Corvallis for a number of years during COVID. We were camping over in Central Oregon a bunch. Like I mentioned, we have family over here. And we just made the decision, like, life's too short to live where you work. We want to work where we want to live. And we told ourselves if we need to, we're going to quit our jobs and we're going to try to buy a house and we're going to figure it out. And luckily enough, my wife was able to keep her job, but I needed to quit mine at OSU
What does your wife do?
She works in sales for a family-owned farm in Corvallis, actually.
Oh,
Still,
okay.
yeah,
Wow.
Stallbush Island Farms. They do frozen fruits and veggies, but she was able to work remotely, and she goes back about once a month.
Oh,
But
great.
that actually, funny enough, the first place I looked for jobs was at the city, but nothing was available that was of skill or interest. And so the chamber seemed like a very tangential, like adjacent thing to work in the business community. That was my educational background. So it was a wonderful, fortunate timing with that position being open.
Well, the chamber is such a good place to land, given how dynamic they were at that time, and I mean they still are, but growing by leaps and bounds and pulling people in. It must have been fun to be there during that time.
Yeah, especially like obviously working with Katie over at the chamber and now over at the city. I mean, this town obviously is growing, but the longer I'm here, it feels like it's getting smaller. With all the different circles and the people and just relationships that you build over time.
So what was your role at the chamber? What were you doing over there?
I worked primarily with like our events and programming. And so the chamber, as you probably know, does a ton of different events, which are, I would say, a little, cut and paste. There's not a whole lot to them, but the leadership programming that they do with the leadership bend and the emerging talent and more of like the workforce development and leadership development components, that stuff really interested me. And I was fortunate enough to go through the leadership bend program when I worked at the chamber.
So you were managing the program and going through it at the same time.
I was helping support.
You were hopping on both sides of the mic.
Yeah. Talina Barker is the VP of leadership development over there. So she was the primary facilitator, but it was unique being an employee, but also going through the program for sure.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And so, you took some of our listeners and viewers will know Ben Hempson, who he had been in the position prior to you. He was such a great asset for the city and it personally helped me and both of my companies a lot while he was there. I was a big fan. You took over for Ben, and I thought, those are shoes no one's going to fill. And he had pretty hip shoes. I remember he was a good dresser.
Yeah. I mean, the metaphorical shoes, maybe a different story. The actual shoes. Yeah, that was tough.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was such a blessing. Ben was one of the first people I was introduced to when I moved to Bend. And that was an old OSU connection that came full circle. But it was great to learn alongside him, and having him have served in the position prior just was a very natural transition and succession planning, because he had those pre-established connections. He understood the challenges of being one person, but trying to balance the interests of internal and external stakeholders. And that's not an easy thing to do. And it's something I continue to try to improve on.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys do it. It's, he had such a measured temperament, and he could look at a situation and just kind of just like move through it, even if he didn't necessarily think it was the greatest of ideas that he had to support. So you're in that role now. Maybe just give people an understanding, because the reason I wanted you to have be in this podcast is because you do so much within the city, and it's one of those positions where people are always looking high at the city, at the people in like Eric and Katie and folks up there, but there's a lot of folks like you within the city who meet and touch so many people.
The lesser folk. Yeah. No, I totally know what you mean. And my role I view as very cross-functional. Like I mentioned before, you're working a lot with internal and external stakeholders. That's pretty unique for a city position to have. Most people are pretty insular and like being behind closed doors, to be honest with you.
Not an option for you.
No, not an option. And being able to work with all the different groups and associations in town. We have downtown, we have the Central District, we have stuff going up in Northwest Crossing, we have the Southeast area.
Right.
And everyone is at a different point in their maturity or their development. And they all lean on the city to support them with whatever, they're dealing with, or whatever opportunities they want to try to capitalize on. And so that is a challenge that motivates me to try to be that adaptable and be that nimble to meet the needs of the different groups that we get to work with.
I mean, I know that people have this feeling that the city needs to do more for them, and you're really the person that they're going to come to first with that aspirational chat because you're in the meetings with the groups that facilitate, like the Downtown Bend Business Association. One of those retailers, if they want access to the city, more than likely is going to go through the DBA. You're serving there, and you're the liaison, so you got to carry that pail.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm understanding it,
it is.
correctly,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every day is unpredictable. There's going to be a fire or, something to deal with that you
Right.
didn't necessarily anticipate. But having a first point of contact and making sure, to your point of why I'm here, is knowing that you have that, right?
Yeah.
You have that point that someone is there to listen to your business concern, or
Right.
even hopefully there's some opportunities in there too, but
Yeah.
usually it's
Right,
something that someone is dealing with that's more challenging. But just making sure people are cognizant of that,
Right.
and not getting bounced around between the permit counter and various departments, but having something consistent.
I've always found one of the best things about, and this is true for both you and Ben, is that it's nice to have somebody who understands the city well enough to go, hey, this idea or this plan or this need for help, is it gonna fly? Like, is the city gonna be behind this, or is this gonna hit a wall right after you turn your back on me and go into the chambers? And these two, so you spend a lot of time doing that, of explaining to people like how it operates, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think Ben was very skilled at this. It's like determining, one, what the appetite from council is going to be on a
Right.
certain thing, but also what's the feasibility or what's the process that we have to work through administratively with the city staff side to make a change or make a code amendment, or what
Right.
have you. And we can't die on every hill, unfortunately.
Right.
There's just some battles
Sure.
that aren't worth fighting for a variety of reasons, for political capital, for our own staff relationships, etc. But we do always at least do that analysis
Yeah.
to say,
Right.
what could work, what makes the most sense. But
Yeah.
not
It's a super helpful function because people, there's so many assumptions about the city, that whatever they are, whether it's that they've got unlimited resources or unlimited time, or that they're anti this or pro that. I mean, that is a nice function to have somebody to go, is it true, without me having to try, or anybody to try to crawl into a city council chamber. You can help them circumvent those times.
Absolutely. We hear a lot like the black box of the city, you have no idea what goes on
Right.
behind the curtain. And I would really like that narrative to shift a little bit and be like, they tried to exhaust all the options to get to yes.
Right.
Sometimes we can get there, sometimes we can't, but we at least made that clear of why we can't, and how that could maybe be different in the future.
Yeah. To give listeners and viewers a sense of the scope, just rattle off to me 5 or 6 of the committees that you liaise
Oh
with.
gosh. Yeah, it's hard for me to keep track of sometimes, but we have the Visit Bend Board, we have Economic Development for Central Oregon, or EDCO, those Visit Bend and
to be
EDCO.
clear, these are ones that you're personally liaising to.
Yeah, absolutely involved
Right.
with, for sure. We have
Right.
contractual relationships
Right.
with both Visit Bend and EDCO, but then just serving as a staff liaison for the Downtown Bend Business Association, the Central District Business Association. There's a Redmond Airport Advisory Committee. There's City Club and the Programming Committee
Right.
that you and I both
Which
have
is
the
fun.
pleasure of serving on. But yeah, a lot of different places to be. And I mean, my biggest priority, I think, is one, that people feel connected to the city. And if I have
Yeah.
the pleasure of serving in that capacity, then that's great. But someone needs to do that work. I
Yeah,
think it's super
right.
important. But also just making sure that people are informed
Yeah.
and that they know what's going on at a certain time, and they know when and where they need to show up to provide input or feedback that they want council to listen to. So
Well, I mean, if I'm thinking about this, and you're going to a lot of meetings.
a lot of meetings.
And not meetings of your own scheduling. This is I can't imagine what your calendar looks like, because I imagine it's your calendar that these people are moving around. Otherwise, they don't get a liaison. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's a very rewarding piece of the work, but having Katie come on and having economic development be more of a focus of our council and of our staff capacity is great, because to your point, there hasn't been a lot of space for strategic thought with bouncing around with all these different folks that we're trying to serve. But having an executive level position that can really lead the development of our strategy for the next say 5 years, and that's what we're going through right now, is huge.
Yeah, and I don't think maybe just touch on that a bit is Katie, who was your boss over at the chamber, and you ran from her, if I understand.
And then she came
and
following.
then now she's again your boss over in the city. But what is I mean, it's a new position. And I feel like, I know there were press releases and stuff, but I feel like it's gone a little unheralded that, the city brought Katie in and you guys are starting on this economic development side of the city, which they never had before. They didn't have an emphasis there. Talk to that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think Katie's position is repurposed of Ben's position, and raising the level of it to be an officer position, an executive level position within our organization, I think speaks leaps and bounds to the priority that we're trying to reflect to the community, that this is something we're taking really seriously. This is something we want to put our money where our mouth is and invest in. And the expertise that Katie brings, not only from the chamber, but in her previous experiences working for the Port of Portland and over in Vancouver, those are things that the city is wanting to take more of a directive approach in how we do that. And we have great partners, and I think that is a huge strength between the EDCOs, the chambers, the Visit Bends, et cetera, but we haven't necessarily beefed that up internally historically. And with all the different evolutions or volatility that we're seeing at a macro level, I think it's important now more than ever to control what we can at the local level and get creative with what we can do to increase business development, to increase the projects that we're getting to pencil. We've been very fortunate. Our community has grown really organically. Those times are getting harder. And so we need to, I think, come to the table with some better options and some better incentives to keep that momentum going. Well,
for listeners, both of us came from a city club forum from the legislature, and I wouldn't say it was rosy outlook in there from those guys. And I mean, it was a little daunting to hear about how much, and it's no secret how much funding is getting cut from local communities in Oregon. And timing couldn't be better to have something in place where at least you can get these organizations start pulling together.
Right. And that's really, we have this campaign called Invest Bend, and that's really the intent, is for us to create this North Star that all the partners can get in their respective lanes and do what they do best, but we're all working towards the same common goal. And so that's where we're headed. And Katie's actually going to be giving an update to council on October 15th. So that could be a good preview for people to hear a little bit about, what her vision is, but also what she's done in her time so far.
Is that going to be in council chambers as a part of the?
It's also online. So yeah. Anyone can tune in and it'll be recorded, but that'll be a good little preview. And then I think talking a little bit to your point about the forum, our state ranks pretty low in business competitiveness and business friendliness. And so looking at what we can do locally to get creative and get innovative, because our state doesn't necessarily have all of the tools at its disposal to make that stuff happen.
Right.
And so we're working really hard with our urban renewal manager and with our real estate folks to say, what can the city do and control the controllables? Because times are getting a little bit harder.
Yeah, it was an eye opener, and certainly when those legislators were speaking, there was some different views on state of the economy, but not one of the four wasn't saying the number one challenge going forward was going to be the budget and how to handle the budget. I didn't tell them they had to say that and go into it. That was just the only thing any of them wanted to talk about. It's like, is there something else that we want to explore here? And then we go, just budget. Budget's the big one.
It's top of mind for everyone these days, I think.
Yeah, and we did do, for those people who want to search, we did do a pretty good podcast with Katie. I was fascinated by her work at the port. Mm-hmm. The port's and also her passion for ships, which,
she's a port gal.
Came through. She's a port person. But, well, that's going to be exciting times for you, I think.
We're a team of two right now. Right. So, it was a team of one for about almost a year since Ben had left. But I just think the trajectory and the momentum that we have, both with council saying this is a priority, which will continue to be a learning experience,
Yeah.
but having a staff dedicated to this work and the level of which I think we're able to show up and serve our community and the business community specifically is hopefully encouraging.
What is if you had to look down the road, what's the one thing that you would hope to get at the city that would help you the most?
One thing for
Fewer meetings.
Fewer meetings. I mean, continuing on this trajectory of investing in this work.
Yeah.
Like to your point, we're spread pretty thin, and I think there's a lot more we could be doing. And I think this is an opportunity for Katie and I to show the value of what we can provide and what difference that can make. And it just hasn't been something that we've necessarily done previously, but I just think there's a ton of stones that have been left unturned. And so now is time for us to kind of show up and reflect what difference that can make.
That's great. Well, we are at the end of our time.
All right.
What is there anything, if people want to reach you, what's the best way to get a hold of you? And
just pop on down to City Hall.
Yeah.
No, email is definitely best. So it's just cmooney@bendoregon.gov, or show up to any of the meetings that we just rattled off, and I'll be
you
happy
can come to
connect
City
with you.
Club. That's always a good way to meet us. Well, Cyrus, thank you for coming in.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
This has been the Bend Don't Break podcast. Case and cast. If you want to like what you hear, please become a member. Go to the bend.com website. You can become a member and support more podcasts and conversations with cool people like Cyrus. Thank you. You've been listening to the Bend Don't Break podcast, powered by The Source Weekly. To read, hear, and see more of what we do, go to bendsource.com.